I think we can all agree here that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation needs to be defunded. Nobody watches the CBC, they are very biased towards the left, and overall, it's just a big waste of taxpayer money. I want to highlight a few particularly ridiculous aspects of the CBC here for you today to prove the point on how unsalvageable it is. But before I get into it, I just want to highlight this tweet from Andrew Coyne, the fake conservative who tells everyone else that conservatism is actually just being very liberal. He says, in response to, I believe, Sean Spear here from the Hub saying why he thinks the CBC needs to be defunded, Andrew Coyne says this, which is really his silly inside outside game on being conservative. He agrees with conservative positions, but he says that the current conservatives are doing it wrong still. So Andrew Coyne, who is also somebody who appears often on the CBC as a panelist, says, this is all very true. As I've argued many times, but Polyev isn't proposing to defund the CBC because of some principled public good analysis. He's doing it out of revenge and spite to punish it for being mean to the Tories. Isn't that kind of a good reason, Andrew, to defund them? That they are obviously biased towards the Liberals and the NDP and constantly make ridiculous attacks on the Conservatives. There have been CBC journalists involved in the smear questions presented to Pierre Poilievre. And by the way, when Poilievre was running for the leadership back in 2022, it wasn't like the CBC was particularly mean towards him. He took a principled stance well before the CBC really trained a lot of its fire on him. But once they did, it proved the point on why they need to be defunded. CBC journalists were involved in asking questions like, why are you appealing so much to the far right? Are you trying to attract conspiracy theorists? And it was just all of these, when did you stop beating your wife type questions. But Andrew Coyne here has to always be the most correct person in the room. So he'll agree that, yes, there are excesses to the CBC. They've gone outside of their mandate, but those nasty conservatives are just a bunch of far-right Trumpers who don't like the CBC because it doesn't like them. I don't even know what to say to this guy. He's a conservative liberal in the sense that he only seeks to conserve the things that the liberals have done. He doesn't actually care about traditional values or small government. He'd be the type of guy who'd be conservative in the Soviet Union, pushing back against reformers trying to, wrestle away the Soviet government's death grip on the rest of Europe. But now I just want to get into some just stuff about the CBC that I think really makes the point on just how far gone they are. So the other day, a CBC podcast, Front Burner, hosted by Jamie, I think, Passoon or something like that, had on Hassan Piker to talk about the U.S. presidential election, specifically on how Trump capitalized on online culture. Hassan Piker was invited on to the CBC, yet we can't get almost a single real conservative on any panel on the CBC at all. This guy is not just far left, he's a communist. He literally talks about how we should bathe in the blood of capitalists and says that America deserves 9/11. I am not trying to take him out of context. This is something that he actually did. Take a look at this segment from Fox News where they highlight some of the comments he was making about Republican Representative Dan Crenshaw losing his eye.
Guy has the understanding of foreign policy of like a 12-year-old. What the is wrong with this dude? Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave soldier, his eye hole with their? Isn't that how he lost his eye? Because he got his eye hole. America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it.
That I don't need to show you the rest of the segment where Dan Crenshaw responded to that a few years ago. That's somebody who's allowed onto the CBC, but we can't get any reasonable, real conservative on. You get fakes who are just, a little bit fiscally conservative. Oh, I think the liberals need to spend a little bit better. Oh, I think we should maybe lower the carbon tax a little bit. They're not conservative. They're pathetic. They're Toronto, Vancouver, cocktail party circuit conservatives. They work for the conservatives because it's a paycheck sometimes, but they're not actually fundamentally conservative. They'll have people like Fred DeLorean. He's like Andrew, like, or no, yeah, no, Aaron O'Toole's campaign manager. Why is that guy the one representing conservatism on the CBC? That's because he doesn't actually promote conservatism well. The CBC doesn't like real conservatives. That's why they fired somebody like Anthony Koch, who was pushing back on all the crazy Hamas people who work in the media in Canada. And because he used some coarse language, he was fired for going after those who were supporting Hamas killing Jews in Israel. But they'll have on Hassan Piker, the man talking sexually about somebody losing their eye. That's the person that they'll have on. The person who also spreads, verifiably, there's been tons of news reports about this, spreads pro-Hamas propaganda about Israel. He constantly backs anti-Western forces. He just anti-American, anti-Western, and he gets to be on the Front Burner podcast on CBC. I even emailed Jamie Passoon, from the host of the show, saying, why was this guy allowed on the show? Did you know about his background? And can I be clear here? I actually don't really have a problem with Hassan Piker being on. The problem is who is not on at the same time. Why not have a conservative on that podcast too with Hassan? I doubt Hassan would do it if he was on, because he might get some pushback on the things he's said in the past or the things he said in that podcast. And can I just highlight too, the CBC has crazy numbers of podcasts. It's disgusting. Yeah, they have a big budget, so I guess they can pull it off. Who watches this garbage? Here is the CBC's own website laying out its featured podcasts. Look at this. I'm just going to start going down. Have you guys seen any of this stuff? Have you ever watched it? Look at this. Broomgate, a curling scandal. Wow. Oh, I'm going to start watching this. Pornhub Empire, understood. All podcasts. Oh, it's going to go, yeah, from the top to the bottom. Look at this. Look at this. Just look at this. I'm still going. Why are there this many current podcasts? Gay Girl Gone. Front Burner. It's like way down here, Front Burner. I know this is alphabetical order, but the fact that it's taken me this long to get to like the F section. Who's watching this gunk? This trash? This is stupid. Nobody watches this stuff. I guarantee you, this show right now that you're watching me do has more viewership than all of these podcasts combined. We're not even to the bottom yet. There we go. And these are only the current podcasts and some that were recently finished, if it was like a mini series. That is a prestigious amount of garbage. The CBC is a waste of money. And the funny thing is just how nobody watches this stuff. Nobody watches it at all. There's this weird prestige people get from working in the legacy media like the CBC. Oh, I'm a reporter for the CBC. That doesn't mean anything. What, you report on press releases that parties and governments and the mayor and chiefs of police put out? You just do little like small stories every week? The amount of money that these people get paid for basically turning out very little content, and the content isn't worth anything and probably liberal biased nothingness, is insane. They sit at home in their sweatpants writing while they're sitting on the couch watching Netflix, and I'm supposed to value this person as a legitimate reporter? Yes, there are some people in the CBC who knock it out of the park. It would be hard to run an organization with $1.4 billion of taxpayer money and not eventually develop some good reporters. But how do they take this amount of money and turn it into this stuff that you've never watched in your life? Nobody watches this. I can only keep repeating that nobody watches this. Have you watched Sorry About the Kid? Have you watched Sleepover? Slumtown? Sold. Have you not watched any of this stuff? Sick Boy. Have you watched the Sick Boy podcast, guys? I bet you haven't, because it's probably random niche trash for somebody to talk about some like mailbox or whatever in their neighborhood and tell you a sad story about when they lost their pet fish. What is this stuff? Oh my goodness. And like, again, they have far left pro-Hamas people on the podcast as normal people, just introduced as a lefty streamer to talk. He's not a lefty streamer. He's also an anti-Semite. Why is he allowed on the air, but we can't get anybody in the building who actually has a shred of conservatism to them? Is there someone pro-life who sits on a panel regularly? Is there somebody who, as an actual big fiscal hawk, who wants to lower taxes and wasteful spending? Is there a foreign policy hawk? There's none. It's just liberal pablum all the time. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. I need to get this rant out of my system. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Like this video, leave a comment, and of course, if you want to support the show, you can always donate to the Give, Send, Go campaign, the legal fund we have going, and also sign up at my website, wyattclaypool.com, pinned in the comments, so that you can get my recommendations for different nomination races, as well as leadership races, both federally and provincially around Canada. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.